Hello, and welcome to From Kentucky to Tokyo. Apologies, I totally forgot to make an interview video until now, and I didn't realize that the interview started this week, and I apologize profusely. So, I'm going to make this video in the hopes of helping future people. I may be too late to help certain people now, and there's an ambulance behind me. Yay! For the jet interview process, my recommendation for kind of pre-prep, like, is when you're doing your application process, make a copy of everything you're gonna send out. And keep that in a folder and put it somewhere safe. And then, when it comes to this time, like interview time, before you go to your interview, go ahead and look over all of those materials again. So, application itself, the essay, whatever qualification certificates you have, etc., etc. Look at all of those one more time and be sure that, like, you have everything kind of memorized. You don't have to have it super memorized, but just being able to recall it is good. And I would recommend also, like, taking it with you, I guess. Like, just in case they, like, ask you a question, be sure to, like, maybe have it on hand. I didn't need mine, but that was something I was recommended by somebody who also had the interview who didn't make it. I don't know. So I took my copies with me, just in case something happened, but nothing happened to me. But apparently somebody before me, they had to show proof of their certificate of some kind in the interview. I didn't have to do that, but some people sometimes will be asked to show the proof of their certificate, even though they should already have a copy. I don't know. So, bring copies of certificates, or bring the original certificates of, say, if you got an education certificate or something. Bring it with you, just in case, just to be safe. So, basics. Be sure that you have a suit or a pantsuit or some kind of nice interview outfit. So, suits are always great. They're always like, okay, they're pretty good. But you can also just do blazer, nice khakis, or something like that. But please, 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 don't show up to your interview in blue jeans, and please don't show up in just, like, tennis shoes and a kind of a nice shirt over blue jeans. Like, that's not gonna cut it here. So, please look professional. Please, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, basically, button-up shirt, khakis, pretty okay. Button-up shirt with black suit pants, probably fine. You may not have to wear a three-piece suit, I'm saying, but be sure to wear something nice, something kind of pressed looking, I don't know, something that conveys, I am professional, I know how to do a job interview, and I understand what this job is going to mean to me. So, yeah. If you want them to see you as a professional, dress professionally, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, when you're at the interview, they're going to ask you questions about your application. They're going to ask you questions about your essay. They're going to ask you one question, which I think almost everybody in my section was anyway, about what's changed since you've done your application. So, what they mean by what's changed is what have you done to kind of, like, get prepared for possibly living in Japan. So, for me, for example, I decided, in the last semester that I was already overloading on, that I was going to do an education observation course, where I would watch teachers teach at various places. So high school, I think I did one each: high school, middle school, elementary school, I believe. I think it was one of each. So I did an observing education course. So I mentioned that in my interview, like, oh, I know that I have studied in Japan for 1 month, so I have a little bit of Japanese language. Not a lot, but I had a little. Beginner. But I don't really have a lot of education experience, just tutoring, so I decided to take this course to maybe help me get a little bit more experience before I go and teach all by myself. And they really seem to appreciate that, so, I don't know, side advice, this doesn't really have to do with the interview per se, but if you're kind of a more self-motivated person, maybe try and find something in your community that you can help be a teacher or get to teaching experience with. It could be tutoring, I guess. It could be I don't know if everybody has these, but a brothers and big brothers big sisters organization, maybe just something so that you're like mentoring, tutoring, or somehow being in a classroom environment. I don't know, maybe volunteer somewhere that needs more classroom people. Not entirely sure how to help, but oh yeah, maybe take a Japanese course, or maybe take a Japanese language intro thing at, like, I don't know if your community centers are good enough for that. Mine weren't, but I don't know, etc., etc. Trying to like show that you are really interested. You're really trying to invest in this opportunity that they're gonna maybe give you. I think that really helps. I feel like people who've had something to kind of add on to in the interim in between sending their application and actually coming to the interview, I feel like they may have had a little bit more of an edge. That's not necessarily true. Sometimes it does seem random too. I don't know why certain people get chosen and certain people don't. But it couldn't hurt. So that's my advice, is like, try to do something. It doesn't have to be big. Just try to do something that'll maybe you can just say at the interview that you did, and maybe, oh, I brought a updated transcript with me so that I could show them that I did in fact take an education course. So I had proof of what I was saying. I don't know if they will ask you for proof of what you're doing. If you have proof, bring it with you. I just brought it with me because I didn't want to, I don't know, I didn't want to say that I was doing education and then like, but it was not, there was no proof of it. I don't know, I'm weird. So I brought an updated transcript with me just in case they asked me, and I just gave it to them, and they were like, oh, okay, cool, and they just put it into the file. I don't know, maybe I was overachieving there. But it always helps to bring, like I said, it always helps to bring everything with you just in case. So many of the questions that they'll ask you will be pretty basic. Like, okay, so you go to which university? Oh, okay, what was your major? What's your minor? Why are you interested in Japan? Why are you interested in JET program itself? Why do you want to be on the JET program? Etc., etc. Why do you want to teach in Japan? What makes you want to be teaching in Japan and not somewhere else? So that one was hard for me. I was trying to think like, well, I actually wanted to teach also like English in Germany maybe, but I've always wanted to live in Japan since I was a child, but I never thought I'd get there. You might have a better answer for that than I did. I kind of really fumbled that answer because for most of my life, I really did. I thought I was like gonna just learn German. I thought maybe I'd go study in Germany for university. I wasn't really sure. But then I completely changed my mind and I went to Japan. So yay! Yeah. So those kinds of questions. Why are you choosing Japan? Why are you not choosing, Germany? Why are you not choosing China? Why are you not choosing Korea? What makes Japan your choice? The more difficult questions are like, for example, okay, a role-playing example. Okay, let's say a student is acting out in class and the main teacher is not doing anything. What do you do? And so on and so forth. They'll ask you a whole lot of those kinds of, well, not a whole lot, but they asked me about 4 of them. And what would you do scenarios? And so then after you answer, they'll let you know kind of like, oh, well, this is a good answer, but da-da-da-da. So, for example, I said I would tell them to knock it off, like a student who's acting out in class. This is one of my questions. And I said something to the effect of, I would tell them to knock it off. I'd tell them 3 times. If they didn't listen to me, and the main teacher is not doing anything about it, then I would tell them to see me after school. So, as it turns out, as an ALT on the JET program, I actually don't have the authority to do anything. As an ALT, even if you're technically given permission by your main teacher, or even if you're technically given permission by your principal even, you're not supposed to touch, you're not supposed to reprimand, and you're not supposed to discipline the students. Technically. In the real life context, I have totally told off more than a few of my students when I was an ALT. I have kept them after school and kept them in lunch times and such. But anyway, in the professional, like, JET program rules and regulations, you are not supposed to discipline students, at all. Just a fun fact. So, it might help I believe that the JET program website still has what your role is as an ALT. So, before you go to the interview, be sure to reread all that, like what does an ALT do, what's the ALT's job description, and kind of pay attention especially to like classroom rules, like what you are legally binded to do and not do. So that will probably help you with being able to figure out the role plays. I had a friend who was asked something kind of strange. Something to the effect of, okay, so a student's mother bakes you a cake or something like that and gives it to you. What do you do? And apparently, I didn't know this even until later in like my third year of JET program. The correct answer would be you give it back to them, say thank you very much, but please give it to the school, don't give it to me. So it's kind of half common sense, but then at the same time, oh, well, I mean, it's a cake. It's not a bribe. That's not money, right? But actually, yeah, it would be considered technically a gift that you shouldn't give. Or you shouldn't receive, sorry. It's a gift that you shouldn't receive. You should actually just say no thank you. So, yeah. That being said, like I said, in real life, you may do something differently, but in the interview process, try and think along the lines of, it's a job interview, so try and think about if you were having any other job interview, what would be the right thing to say. And then they're going to ask, if you ever said you are more than a beginner in Japanese, they're probably going to ask you Japanese questions. They're probably going to want to know what your Japanese level is actually like. So I put beginner on my application process because I was. Even though I spent a month in Japan studying abroad the year before that, it was not really good Japanese. And it was basically super beginner, like, I think basically touristy kind of Japanese. Doko desu ka? Like, where is it? Or where is this? And I knew sore, kore, asoko, and things like that. This, that, there, so on and so forth. I knew those things, but I didn't really know anything that was going to be helpful in the actual Japanese environment. But there was a Japanese guy there, and he did do simple Japanese, and I got 2 out of my 5 answers correct. So the first 2 being very simple, like, what do you do in your free time, or something like that, and then, or what's your hobby? What's your hobby? So, shumi wa nan desu ka? So, what's your hobby? And my answer was, oh, I like to read books or something. I don't remember how I said it, but it was not technically correct, but it was basically the right idea. I think it was hon o yomimasu, something like that. I think I said something very formal, and yeah, so I read books in my free time. That was like, basically. And so he was like, oh, okay. And then he went on and he did more and more difficult ones. The thing is, though, what really got me was at the third one, I was like, okay, I can't answer this question. So why are we continuing on to the more difficult questions? But like, this question was kind of difficult. This question was super difficult. And then this question was mega difficult. I had no idea what the 5th one was. But yeah, so I got 2 out of the 5. But like the other 3, I basically said, sumimasen, wakarimasen, like, excuse me, I don't understand. And the other 3 times, he just kept asking more difficult questions, and I was like, at the end, what? Huh? Wait, if I couldn't answer the 3rd one, why do you keep asking more difficult ones? I don't know. So, I don't know. But yeah, they'll ask you questions based on your level as to what kind of Japanese you said you would be able to answer. So, they'll ask you that. What else will they ask you? Let's see. Well, they'll ask you if you have any family history in Japan. I don't. I have none that I'm aware of. I have German, Irish, Scottish, and etc. But I have 0 Japanese experiences in my family. But they'll ask you about that if you have, like, Japanese heritage, maybe. What else? They'll ask what you want to do after JET. So they'll ask you, what's your goals for using, like, JET program experience after you're done with JET? And so I said something to the effect of, after JET, I think I want to do something with Japanese. I think maybe language interpreter or something, or maybe work in publishing with Japanese or something. And that was acceptable, I think. However, there are so many different ways you could use JET program for it. So a lot of people say something to the effect of, I'm going to use it to better strengthen relations between US and Japan and so on and so forth. And I want to be able to bring what I've learned in Japan over to America, etc., etc. There are a lot of answers to that question. You try and think of the best one you possibly can for you, because every person is different. Every person wants to use what they've learned differently. So, yeah. So what are you going to do with this experience after you're done with JET program? Because there's 5 years limit. That's it. That's all you get. So, what are you going to do after the 5 years are over? Or less than. Let's say you're only doing 1 or 2. What will you do after? How will this affect you? Be sure to be able to answer that. Okay. I think that's basically it. I can't really say, well, okay, some advice for this. If you can, before you go to the interview, try and find some sample questions about the JET program online, print them out, give them to 3 of your friends, and maybe have a mock interview. I actually did that. I got my friends together, and I gave them liquor, I think, and I gave them chocolate, and I was like, here, just ask me questions. So we did that, and that was kind of helpful. I don't know, it did help me to kind of start getting the gears turning and start thinking a little bit more. You can do that if you want, you don't have to. But then, what else did we do? Okay. Here's a bit of advice that is just to be less stressful. Okay. I went to Chicago for my interview. I lived in like Lexington, Kentucky area. That was like 6 hours of driving. It was pretty okay, like driving wise, but by the time I got to my hotel, I was exhausted, and I still had to, in my head, I still had to like review my stuff. I still had to, get ready for the next day and stuff, etc., etc. And so I was kind of stressed about that before I went to sleep, and then I woke up kind of stressed because I didn't really feel like I had enough time to prepare. So there's that. If you can, try and get somewhere that's close, but then on top of that, try and think of the less stressful way that you can get there. So the way I should have done it, maybe, is like I should have told my professors the day before that, like, I have to go to this interview. I would like time to prepare, so I'm going to take this day off and this day off. So I have 1 day of travel, 1 day of prep, and then the interview. But I remember there was also the option to maybe fly from Lexington. From Lexington's or the Louisville airport? I forget what, the Bluegrass airport. So there was an airport there, and there was an airport, of course, in Chicago. So there was that option, and that would have been a lot less stressful, I feel like. Like, maybe it would have only been like an hour or 2, or maybe an hour and a half, something like that. It would have been a lot less stressful to go by airplane, but it was more expensive to go by airplane, so meh. I chose the car. I shouldn't have. I should have just bit the bullet, and I should have tightened my belt and just maybe gone by airplane. It would have been a lot less stressful. Or if you can get somebody to drive you there instead of you taking on all that responsibility and just going yourself, maybe. You gotta think of how you're gonna be stressed beforehand. Try not to make the travel part of it so stressful too. So, yeah, wherever your nearest embassy is that you're gonna have your JET interview at, try to think of the least stressful way to get there. And if possible, if you need a whole day to travel to get there, take the time off. Just do it. Trust me. I wish I had. I remember I left and I got there and I didn't really eat dinner. Like, I called out for food service. I ate the food that I don't even remember what it is because I was reading all my stuff, and then I went to sleep. It was not fun. It was not a fun time. So, highly recommend that you do that. Okay, so I think that's everything. Good luck on the JET interview process. I'll see you guys later. This has been From Kentucky to Tokyo. Good luck. Goodbye.